Welcome to your Future 21C. Yes, today we are talking about the US warning China, and we are also going to talk about an Alabama cop, a police in the USA who slams a Walmart customer in Walmart, not forgetting the arrival of Kim Jong-un, the North Korean president, and the Ghanaian president Akufo-Addo, who languaged some sense into the head of the French president Jean Macron, not forgetting a Cameroonian brother in Europe who claimed to know how to treat himself with fufu to treat the coronavirus, but finally lay down in bed due to the COVID-19 attack. And last but not the least, we are also going to talk about the Africans, West Africans in Kuwait. Now let's get ready into the news. Yes, we are back again. We all know how China had been treating the Africans, the racial abuses in China, and how China had been raising their shoulder against other countries in the world, showing the world how they are just bluffing like a toothless bulldog. Now, the USA had been staying silent for a while, trying to do this in a calm but cold war, which has also been something that they have realized that while they are staying back, the Chinese or China had been preparing hard for the combat. Now the US has risen from slumber and then point a finger of warning to the Chinese government. Let's take a look if you have not seen this video.
U.S. Navy deployed long-range missiles to South China Sea. As Washington and Beijing trade barbs over the coronavirus pandemic, a longer-term struggle between the two Pacific powers is at a turning point, as the United States rolls out new weapons and strategy in a bid to close a wide missile gap with China. The United States has largely stood by in recent decades as China dramatically expanded its military firepower. Now, having shed the constraints of a Cold War-era arms control treaty, the Trump administration is planning to deploy long-range, ground-launched cruise missiles in the Asia-Pacific region. The Pentagon intends to arm its Marines with versions of the Tomahawk cruise missile now carried on U.S. warships, according to the White House budget requests for 2021 and congressional testimony in March of senior U.S. military commanders. It is also accelerating deliveries of its first new long-range anti-ship missiles in decades. The U.S. moves are aimed at countering China's overwhelming advantage in land-based cruise and ballistic missiles. The Pentagon also intends to dial back China's lead in what strategists refer to as the range war. The People's Liberation Army (PLA), China's military, has built up a huge force of missiles that mostly outrange those of the U.S. and its regional allies, according to senior U.S. commanders and strategic advisors to the Pentagon, who have been warning that China holds a clear advantage in these weapons. The Tomahawk, which first gained fame when launched in massed strikes during the 1991 Gulf War, has been carried on U.S. warships and used to attack land targets in recent decades. The Marines would test-fire the cruise missile through 2022 with the aim of making it operational the following year, top Pentagon commanders testified. U.S. military unshackled. While the coronavirus pandemic rages, Beijing has increased its military pressure on Taiwan and exercises in the South China Sea. In a show of strength, on April 11 the Chinese aircraft carrier Liaoning led a flotilla of 5 other warships into the western Pacific through the Miyako Strait to the northeast of Taiwan, according to Taiwan's defense ministry. On April 12, the Chinese warships exercised in waters east and south of Taiwan, the ministry said. Meanwhile, the U.S. Navy was forced to tie up the aircraft carrier USS Theodore Roosevelt at Guam while it battles to contain a coronavirus outbreak among the crew of the giant warship. However, the U.S. Navy managed to maintain a powerful presence off the Chinese coast. The guided missile destroyer USS Barry passed through the Taiwan Strait twice in April. And the amphibious assault ship USS America last month exercised in the East China Sea and South China Sea, the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command said. China derived an advantage because it was not party to a Cold War-era treaty, the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty (INF), that banned the United States and Russia from possessing ground-launched ballistic and cruise missiles with ranges from 500 kilometers to 5,500 kilometers. Unrestrained by the INF Pact, China has deployed about 2,000 of these weapons, according to U.S. and other Western estimates. This accumulated firepower has shifted the regional balance of power in China's favor. The United States, long the dominant military power in Asia, can no longer be confident of victory in a military clash in waters off the Chinese coast, according to senior retired U.S. military officers. The budget documents show that the Marines have requested $125 million to buy 48 Tomahawk missiles from next year. The Tomahawk has a range of 1,600 kilometers, according to its manufacturer, Raytheon Company. Smith also said the Marines had successfully tested a new shorter-range anti-ship weapon, the Naval Strike Missile, from a ground launcher and would conduct another test in June. He said if that test was successful, the Marines intended to order 36 of these missiles in 2022. The U.S. Army is also testing a new long-range, land-based missile that can target warships. This missile would have been prohibited under the INF Treaty. The Defense Department also has research underway on new, long-range strike weapons, with a budget request of $3.2 billion for hypersonic technology, mostly for missiles. Bottling up China's Navy. In embracing this strategy, Washington is attempting to turn Chinese tactics back on the PLA. Senior U.S. commanders have warned that China's land-based cruise and ballistic missiles would make it difficult for U.S. and allied navies to operate near China's coastal waters. But deploying ground-based U.S. and allied missiles in the island chain would pose a similar threat to Chinese warships, to vessels operating in the South China Sea, East China Sea and Yellow Sea, or ships attempting to break out into the Western Pacific. Japan and Taiwan have already deployed ground-based anti-ship missiles for this purpose. The United States has other counterweights. The firepower of long-range U.S. Air Force bombers could pose a bigger threat to Chinese forces than the Marines, the strategists said. Particularly effective, they said, could be the stealthy B-21 bomber, which is due to enter service in the middle of this decade, armed with long-range missiles. The new missile carries a 450-kilogram warhead and is capable of semi-autonomous targeting, giving it some ability to steer itself, according to the budget request. Details of the stealthy cruise missile's range are classified. But U.S. and other Western military officials estimate it can strike targets at distances greater than 800 kilometers. The budget documents show the Pentagon is seeking $224 million to order another 53 of these missiles in 2021. The U.S. Navy and Air Force expect to have more than 400 of them in service by 2025, according to orders projected in the documents. This new anti-ship missile is derived from an existing Lockheed long-range, land attack weapon, the Joint Air-to-Surface Standoff Missile. The Pentagon is asking for $577 million next year to order another 400 of these land attack missiles.
That's it. If you are preparing for the war, please just prepare for your war. You go and fight, but leave Africa alone. I mean, Africa is a peaceful place. We are peaceful people, even though you are taking us to be the bad people. It's because of our too much kindness that we are facing what we are facing today in the world. But I'm promising you that someday the Africans you are thinking you are mishandling today will change their mind one day and things will not be better for you all. So you better start wise. Let's go back and see what happened in Alabama. A police officer slams a Walmart customer in Walmart, and that was for the reasons that the customer came into Walmart without having the COVID-19 masks on. I wonder if this cop was a wrestler who is missing his job in the ring, or he was really doing the work, or is it hatred or something different. But remember one thing, we have to be taking order when it comes to times like this. Remember when they say put on your mask before going out. Don't disobey that law. You have to do it or you face consequences like this. Meanwhile, back in Asia, the North Korean President Kim Jong-un is back. The man came back.
민주주의인민공화국 무력 최고 사령관이신 우리 중과 국가무력의 최고領導자 김정은 동지께서 준공식에 참석하셨습니다. 최고領導자 김정은 동지께서 준공식장에 나오셨습니다. 참가자들은 탁월한 용도로 구체적인 혁명공업 발전에서 새로운 첨단을 안아주시고 자립경제 강화를 위한 혁명적 대중군을 승리로 이끌어주시는 경애하는 최고 용도자 김정은 동지께 최대의 영광을 드리며 폭풍 같은 만세 환호를 던져드렸습니다. 조선노동당 중앙위원회 정치부 상무위원 대비원이며 조선민주주의인민공화국 국무위원회 부위원장이며 당 중앙위원회 부위원장인 박봉주 동지가 준공식에 참가했습니다. 조선노동당 중앙위원회 정치부 위원이며 조선민주주의인민공화국 국무위원회 위원이며 내각 총리 김재경 동지와 조선노동당 중앙위원회 부위원장들인 김덕춘 동지, 박계성 동지, 조선노동당 중앙위원회 제1부부장들인 김여정 동지, 조영원 동지, 당 중앙위원회 일꾼들, 건설에 참가한 군대와 사회 일꾼들, 건설자들, 평안남관의 근로자들이 참가했습니다. 조선노동당 중앙위원회 정치부 상무위원회 위원이며 조선민주주의인민공화국 국무위원회 부위원장이며 당 중앙위원회 부위원장인 박봉주 동지가 준공사를 했습니다.
After his 20 days missing, or was it 20 or more than 20 days? Yeah, he came back. He told the people, look, I'm alive, I'm strong and healthy. Blow a cigarette and make them to understand that despite all what you have been saying, you say I'm dead, you say I'm ill, whatever you say is your own. Down to Africa, the president of Ghana, Akufo-Addo,
If you continue like this, I'll just pull it up for you.
spoke some sense into the minds of the French president Jean Macron. I hope every African president will learn something. I mean, let's learn. Let's forget about being greedy. Yes, let's stop stealing and embezzlement and learn. Just watch this video.
There is a fundamental misstatement of the issue in the question. We can no longer continue to make policy for ourselves, in our country, in our region, in our continent, on the basis of whatever support the Western world or France or the European Union can give us. It will not work. It has not worked, and it will not work. Our responsibility is to charter a path which is about how we can develop our nations ourselves. It is not right for a country like Ghana, 60 years after independence, to still have its health and education budgets being financed on the basis of the generosity and charity of European taxpayers. By now, we should be able to finance our basic needs ourselves. And if we are going to look at the next 60 years as a period of transition, a period whereby we can stand on our own feet, our perspective has not to be what the French taxpayer decides to do with whatever surpluses that they have in France. They're welcome. They are appreciated. Whatever interventions that the French taxpayer through their governments make to us are appreciated. We're not going to lick a gift horse in the mouth. But this continent, with all that has happened, is still today the repository of at least 30% of the most important minerals of the world. It's a continent of vast, arable and fertile lands. It has the youngest population of any of the continents in the world. So it has the energy and the dynamism. We have seen it. These young men who are showing so much resilience and ingenuity in crossing the Sahara, finding ways to go across with rickety boats across the Mediterranean to really, those energies, we want to have those energies working inside our countries. And we're going to have those energies working in our countries if we begin to build systems that tell the young people of our country that their hopes, their opportunity are right here with us. Migration and the movement of people is being presented in a manner which suggests that somehow it's a new phenomenon. There's nothing new about it. It's as old as man, the movement of people. And it has always been linked to the same thing. The failure of where you are to provide you with an opportunity, so you move somewhere else. Those of you who are familiar with 19th century European history would know that the biggest wave of immigration in 19th century Europe, the latter part of it, came from Ireland and from Italy. Waves upon waves, generations of Italians and the Irish people left their countries to seek the American paradise, largely because Ireland was not working, Italy was not working. Today, you don't hear it. Italian young people are in Italy. Irish young people are in Ireland. We want young Africans to stay in Africa. And how are they? And it means that we have to get away from this mindset of dependence. This mindset about what can France do for us. France will do whatever it needs to do for its own sake. And when those coincide with ours, tant mieux, as the French people say. But our main responsibility as leaders, as citizens, is what we need to do to grow our own countries. What are the institutions that work that would allow us to have good governance, to have accountable governance, to make sure that the monies that are placed at the disposal of leaders are used for the interests of the state and not for those of the leaders, to have systems that allow for accountability, that allow for diversity, that allow for people to be able to express themselves and contribute to fashioning the public will and the public interest. Our concern should be with what do we need to do in this 21st century to move Africa away from being cap in hand and begging for aid, for charity, for handouts. The African continent, when you look at its resources, should be giving monies to other places. We have huge wealth on this continent, in our own country of Ghana. And we need to have a mindset that says, we can do it. Others have done it. We can also do it. And once we have that mindset, We will see it as a liberating factor for ourselves. We keep talking about how it was that Koreans, Malaysians, Singaporeans, who got their independence at the same time as us. We're told of that at the time of Ghanaian independence, per capita Ghanaian income was higher than that of Korea. Today, Korea is part of the first world. So is Malaysia. So is Singapore. What happened? Why did they make that transition? And 60 years after independence, we are where we are. Those are the matters that should concern all of us as Africans, as Ghanaians. And not, when I say so with the greatest of respect to the French president, I think that the cooperation of France is something that I am, as you know, a strong friend of France. I am Francophile. So I don't have any difficulty with that. But I'm talking about our own propulsion, what we need to do to get our countries to work so that we can create the conditions that would allow our young people to forego this hazardous effort to get to Europe. They're not going there because they want to. They're going there because they don't believe they have any opportunities in our countries. So that should be our focus. And I believe that with that if we change that mindset of dependence, that mindset which is contingent on aid and charity, we would see that in the decades ahead of us, the full flowering of the African peoples would take place. And that new African personality that was talked about at the time of our independence will become real and imminent in our times. That's what I'm saying. I hope that I'm not upsetting the questioner or even some of my friends who are here.
At least learn something. You guys should call the other African presidents and leaders, or so-called leaders. I mean, let them come and sit down and then understand how to language the sense into the minds of those Europeans. Well, let's go now to the next page and see a Cameroonian brother who claimed that he can eat fufu, bangwa man, chop fufu, and then he can stay healthy. COVID-19 cannot touch him while going to work. Be careful, my brother. Don't run your mouth like that next time.
Whenever they carry bangwa man, how you want to pass? How? You know they carry fufu and chia, don't chop them. Fufu and beans, fufu and cabbage, koki and fufu and pear, don't chop them. I beg. I need to see that your Bangwa man not fit get coronavirus. Don't want it.
Will you shut up?
Coronavirus see Bangwa man fear. That only matter for Switzerland. The only Bangwa for you. You walk on the street. I'm gonna go walk. I don't walk how.
Get right here, man.
Are these people?
Thou shalt quarantine the leprous person.
Ooh, bitch, you got coronavirus. Ooh, shit, you got coronavirus. We ain't finna do shit with this coronavirus.
Bros, I wish you quick recovery. Hope you get well soon. No baba juju. We see what the Africans in Kuwait are going through. You can live with hatred in you for the Africans. You can hate the Africans because they are black. You can hate them for whatever archaic reasons. You can hate people for their skin color, but you cannot do without the Africans in no way and no part of the world. The government in Kuwait has asked the Africans to leave Kuwait, yet he don't want them to take off from the country. He is still trying to tie them down. They stop the taxis from taking them to the airport, and they don't want them to leave any longer. So this is just a sign to tell you that even the Bible that we preach, the origin of every story is from Africa. Take it or leave it, that is it, because one day you will know the truth. So what you are doing right now, remember and know it with you, even when you are going to your grave, that a generation will come to suffer the same effect if you are not careful and trying to change things for the better today.
Yes!
woke up. What's it? Anger. Say go red off. Nano? Mami, Nano put me for video.